if you're like myself, you don't want to just talk about a particular issue that you see going on. You want to be able to do something about it. And me talking about the issues of legal immigration and the problems I notice with it, it's one thing, especially since I'm putting it out there on the internet and on social media. And it generates some interest. It finds common ground with folks. It keeps the issue front of mind so that it's not forgotten. That's one thing. Another thing is to actually confront it and do something about it. I'm going to show you a way that you can do that passively in between two videos where people are being a little bit more active, a little more bold in their approach. The first approach is of a gal where she's actually knocking on the door of what's supposed to be the business address of a company that hires H1B folks. The latter example at the end of my presentation will be of a gentleman who's speaking directly to elected officials at a city council meeting. In between, I'm going to share a way that you and I can do things less aggressively than they're doing, but it could potentially have some impact. So let's take a look. But before I get into that, one other thing. In the past, I've shied away from focusing on Texas so much because I didn't want to come off like I'm being a homer. I thought it would potentially alienate folks in the audience. But noticing what's going on in Minneapolis with the fraud that's happening with the Somali community and how that gathered national attention from a lot of people, and particularly once riots and shootings started to happen, it garnered even more media attention. Not that many people live in Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota as a whole, but that has gained national attention. What's going on here in Texas is a case study of what happens in the H1B community. And so if things can, in a small town or a smaller town in Minnesota, can gather national attention, we can do the same thing here in Texas. Furthermore, the city, it just happens to be the same city. In the first video I'm going to show for you, and the last video, they're talking about a city called Frisco, Texas. I happened to live there for 12 years, so I can speak with some authority about my experience there. Being back in Texas now, I have driven through Frisco on occasion, so I'm still familiar with it. So again, I can speak with some authority on that. So that's the only reason I and these examples will be about Frisco, Texas, but is still addressing the national issue and concern of H1B, and I'll show you how you can do something about it in your neck of the woods. But let's take a look at this first video.
Hi, are you Hari?
Yeah.
Hi. I was wondering, I was just looking for more information on Quibbit's technology.
Can I call cops? I can't call.
Yeah, sure. I would love for the cops to come out here. Well, you're probably not going to be shocked to hear that 3B's Technologies is not an isolated incident. Here we have Quibbit's Tech Systems, and this company, tech is in the name, so you would think technology, okay? They have filed 13 H1B visas, and 12 were approved in the year 2025. One was denied. So you would expect that at least 12 people were working in this house right here. Let's see if that's the case. Hi, are you Hari?
Yeah.
Hi. I was wondering, I was just looking for more information on Quibbit's technology.
Can I call cops? I can't call.
Yeah, sure. I would love for the cops to come out here. I just have some questions about the H1B visa workers that you
Can I take pictures?
have here.
Right now I cannot talk anything. If you want, I can talk to my lawyer. Thank you.
Okay, so are the workers in here? Are the 12 workers for your company in here? Do they work out of here?
No.
Okay, so what is Quibbit's then? Qubits?
I don't want to talk.
Where are the workers? They're supposed to. USCIS says that they're here.
No,
Yes.
no.
Well, where are they?
They are in my company. I have a company where
Where's your company located?
if somebody is knocking on my door and then they are like threatening me.
I'm not threatening you,
So
sir.
please, can you help me?
I'm literally asking you a question.
3 Promontory Drive,
Great.
Frisco, Texas 75033.
You're engaging in a conversation with me, sir.
Sir? Yeah,
Where is your office?
ubitstechsystems.com. You find address.
Can you repeat that? I don't understand. If you don't want to talk to me, just close the door.
103 Promontory Drive.
Actually, the audacity that you are coming here and exploiting my system and using my taxpayer dollars to call the police for me investigating is insane. So what I hope that this accomplishes is that I want everybody who is exploiting our immigration system to be I want them to be on high alert. I want them to be so scared that someone's going to show up at their door and expose all of the fraud that they're committing that they go home. As you just heard Hari say, his workers are all at the office. Now that address can be found, as he just said, on his website, cubitstechsystems.com. It's an Irving, Texas address, so we went out there to check that out, see if Hari was telling the truth. Now, on the surface, you arrive, it's a nice office building, looks legit, a lot of other businesses there, and there it is, Suite 137. Initially, you think, oh, maybe this is actually checking out. Maybe he's telling the truth, until you look in the window and see that it's just a couple of fold-out tables and a single chair. Pretty cramped working quarters for 12 H1B workers.
Interesting. Ballsy. Bold. I like it. I'm not really familiar with this particular reporter, but that's gutsy. I promised I would show a way that you and I could have some effect without necessarily potentially doing some sort of Mike Wallace 60 minutes in your face type stuff. So let's take a look. Here is a site that I learned about. Maybe you already know about it. Maybe you don't. I didn't know about it until this past week. Called fraudreporter.visadata.org. fraudreporter.visadata.org. And here is basically a database where you can submit information that seems shady about H-1Bs. It states that there's something called a labor condition application. When employers file H-1B labor condition applications, they must attest that the position is bona fide, meaning it's real, a legitimate job at an actual business location, and a bona fide position is required. They do stress that H-1B doesn't require proving the inability for the employer to find U.S. workers. That requirement applies to people up for green cards, not H-1Bs, but H-1B employers must still attest that the working conditions are not adversely affecting U.S. workers, meaning they're not replacing U.S. workers. They're supposed to be supplementing U.S. workers, not replacing them. And that they won't displace U.S. workers, as I said, 90 days before or after the filing. Fraudulent labor condition applications claiming non-existent business locations undermine these protections and enable displacement of American workers. So you can read the stuff here yourself, but they're saying the solution is crowdsourced verification. This stuff that we can verify can go to the Department of Labor and help them investigate these violations, potential violations, with monetary penalties up to $35,000 per violation, which seems small in my opinion. It's not much of a deterrent, and debarment from the H-1B program for up to 3 years, and requirements to pay back wages to affected workers. And well, that's a big one. The 3-year penalty, it's not a huge deterrent, but it's a deterrent. And back pay for people who got displaced, that's pretty hefty. The things that you'll need, and I'll show this map here in a second, but you'll just need a smartphone camera, make a physical visit, some observational skills, and maybe 15 minutes. You choose a location nearby yourself. But anyway, here's what the map looks like. And up here you can type in any address, maybe your home address, and see how close a potential fraudulent location is to you. But if you just zoom in real quick and zoom out, it shows all these locations. Man, they're even in Hawaii, 234 locations in Hawaii. But I believe this is the location the lady was looking at in Frisco, Texas, Promontory Drive. She showed that in her video. And I thought, man, that name sounds familiar. I either looked at a house on that street or I've actually gone for a walk on that street. So that's why I looked it up on a map myself and said, how close was that to my former residence when I lived in Frisco? So that was amazing. But yeah, it does show that this hasn't been investigated yet. You could start an investigation, which I'm not sure I would have gone and knocked on the door. If I lived by, I'd just go and photograph. Hey, this doesn't look like a real business. Look at their website. I probably would have gone to the location, but all the way in Irving, if I made a trip to Irving on occasion, I might have. But I'm going to put in my address. In fact, I already have. And I see that there's some places nearby that I can go to, take a picture, document whether or not it's actually in the office space. But as you can see, man, you can zoom in here and see this is a residential area all day long. This is where that Qubits place is. And not far from them is another location. It's as clear as day. It's residential. They're not supposed to be really having virtual addresses. But that's something that you can do. I'll leave a link for that in the notes of this video. Let's go on to the final thing that I wanted to show. This is a guy who is a former T-Mobile employee who's a whistleblower on H1B stuff, and you'll see him talking to the City Council of Frisco earlier this week. If I had known, maybe I would have made a trip out there, but he's at the end, you'll hear him say, I'll be back for the next meeting, which is in a couple weeks. Maybe I'll go by and see what's up. But anyway, let's take a look. T-Mobile whistleblower asked Frisco, Texas City Council about Indian donors. He really reads them the riot act. Keep in mind, they only have a certain amount of time. That's why he's reading, to make sure he gets in all his points, gets it on the record. And I think it's great. Kind of reminds me of Alex Stein, if any of you know that name.
All right, guys, I'm back. Did you guys miss the T-Mobile whistleblower? I bet you didn't. I spent 3.5 months in the Collin County jail because the state of Texas and Collin County said I weaponized free speech in the First Amendment. What a joke my corrupt trial was. They even changed out my constitutional judge from Collin County with a retired liberal judge from Dallas, because that's how you weaponize the judiciary system to go after someone speaking up. But don't worry, I'm not here to talk about me and my story today. I'm here to talk about the Indian takeover in Frisco and H1B fraud. I'm sure you all have seen the Somalian fraud in Minnesota, and a lot of people are starting to talk about Frisco being taken over by Indians and being the largest hub for H1B employment in America. Over the last 20 years, Frisco's Indian population has exploded by 4,510%, from 2% of the population to 33% of the population. As a reminder from the last time I spoke in June and July, let me remind you of the mayor's donations. In 2021, 10% of donations above $1,000 were from people with Indian last names. In 2023, 55% of donations above $1,000 were from people with Indian last names. A 450% increase in donations above $1,000 from people with Indian last names. That seems like a red flag to me. Now, let me ask a few questions to the mayor and city council that I don't expect you guys to answer, but I'm going to ask them anyway. Mayor Cheney, for 2023, why were 4 of your top donors Indian people not living in Frisco or even Collin County and donating $5,000 to you? I don't understand why someone would donate to a mayor that doesn't represent them unless that mayor represents business interests that make them money. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that all of you are in real estate business and those 4 donors have over 158 businesses registered in their name. Bert, Frisco's first Indian city council member, I got a few questions for you too. Why did you use a consulting firm where the CEO was convicted of fraud? Why is one of your biggest donors an Indian in the North Texas real estate business that doesn't live in Frisco? Why is another one of your biggest donors a white resident in Dallas in real estate? Why does one of your biggest donors have 4 companies hiring H1B employees? And why does one of your donors have 23 H1B companies registered to one address? I'll end my questions there. We'll see if your constituents or any news outlets apply pressure and force you guys to answer these questions. As a reminder, I started speaking at Frisco City Council in April 2025 to expose T-Mobile as a whistleblower because one of their headquarters is right here in Frisco, Texas, the one I worked out of. All of you should have helped me, but all of you have decided to support a corporation over your oath to the Texas and United States Constitution. And let's not forget in July of last year when you partnered with the PGA to have me criminally trespassed for exercising my First Amendment right. I posted the body cam footage to my YouTube if anyone wants to see what happened. I'm a 42-year-old lifelong Texan, and it's absolutely sad what's going on in Texas and the United States of America. Every elected official is bought and paid for, and the corruption goes deeper than people can imagine. If you're interested in my story or want to support me, check out my Substack website or find me on X, Instagram, or YouTube. It's hard to find me because I've been severely shadow banned. Make sure you spell my name correctly. MarkPalaciano.com, MarkPalaciano. I would also be on TikTok, but T-Mobile got me banned the same day I had my first court date. And before I go, I got one more question. Did Frisco drop the charges for January 6th insurrectionist Jake Lang trespassing on Frisco ISD property? Frisco spent $50,000 on police overtime for his Protect White Americans protest that 15 people showed up to. And then he recorded himself breaking into the stadium where Carmelo Anthony stabbed Austin Metcalf. Frisco announced charges being filed, but I couldn't find anything in Collin County's court system. Have a wonderful night, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to show Texans how corrupted the city of Frisco is. I'll see you guys February 3rd at the next meeting. Thank you.
That's gutsy. Yeah, some of you may remember Austin Metcalf was the young man who got stabbed by a kid named Carmelo Anthony. Austin Metcalf is a white kid, high school student. Carmelo Anthony, black student. That happened in the North Texas area, I believe in Frisco. So Frisco's no slouch. Maybe you haven't heard of it, but the international headquarters for the Dallas Cowboys, even though they're not in Dallas, they're not even in Dallas County. They play their games out in Arlington, Texas. But the international headquarters for the Dallas Cowboys is in Frisco, Texas. The headquarters for the PGA is now in Frisco, Texas. The headquarters for the National Soccer Hall of Fame is in Frisco, Texas. So that's just some things I can name off the top of my head that are nationally significant, including that national story where Carmelo Anthony stabbed Austin Metcalf to death. But that's a gutsy thing that this man did going to the city council meeting. Gutsy thing the lady in the first video did going to the address of what seems to be a fraudulent business that supposedly hires H1B folks. And not saying that we have to put ourselves out there and risk being pursued legally, harassed. You can anonymously go to these places and submit photos and, hey, yeah, I walked into this building, saw that they had a suite, but there was nothing going on. It was locked. Kind of like what they're doing out there with the Leering Center out in Minnesota, except those guys, Nick Shirley, did go and, encountered those folks. You don't have to do that in order to take advantage of that site that I showed. Like I say, I'm going to type in my address and see how close some locations are and go, check them out, at least document it. Might not knock on the door, depends on what mood I'm in, what kind of smoke I want. This is your first time checking me out, consider leaving a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.